Hi, it's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and I'm here today to talk about my new timeless quilt. This is one of the new quilt patterns that I released with our Balboa fabric collection, and the pattern is actually for an 81.5 by 81.5 inch quilt, which is a really nice size. And also, if you'll notice that the picture on the cover, it's very scrappy. But when I found out that Quilt Market was going to be canceled this year, I decided to make this quilt king size, and I also decided to make it a little bit less scrappy. So I'm going to show you some things about the quilt and give you the tips and tricks that I use for making it. So as I mentioned, I made this quilt king size after it was announced that Quilt Market was going to be canceled, because I thought I really want to use this quilt. And so instead of making the 9 blocks that are in the pattern for the 80 by 80, I made 16 blocks. So I have a 4 block by 4 block grid. And that gave me the extra width and length that I needed to make a king size quilt. So this is a really big quilt. And the other thing I did in the pattern, it has you making the center stars with 1 fabric, and I did that here. But it has all of the star points very scrappy, which I think is really fun as well. But I thought it would also be fun to see how it would look with this type of version with just 2 colors in each block. And some tips and tricks for this quilt: you will be making lots of half score triangles out of the same fabric, and that's whether you make it in a 2 color block version or you use the scrappy version, because you're going to be making all of those half score triangles for the whole quilt at once. So regardless of which way you do it, I really believe that the fastest way to make the half score triangles is to use the half score triangle paper. And then the other thing that I did to increase the accuracy was I did use a block lock ruler for the center square. So, and I won't link those exact sizes because that information is in the pattern, but you would just buy the block lock ruler for the size finished geese that you need in the pattern, and the half square triangle paper for the size finished half square triangles that you need in the pattern. But I just put it together with a really simple sashing and posts. But one other thing I wanted to show you that I did with this quilt was I did a scrappy binding, and you can see right here where 2 of the fabrics are meeting. And this is a great option for a king size quilt, because otherwise you're buying a ton of yardage for your binding on such a large quilt. And I was able to use scraps for the scrappy binding. And I will tell you that I did pieces that were about 20 inches long. So each of my scrappy binding strips is about 20 inches long. And I did that for the entire quilt. And I actually do have a blog post on scrappy binding. If I'm making a smaller quilt, I might make those strips about half that size, about 10 to 11 inches. But for this big king size quilt, it really worked to have the 20-inch scrappy binding strips. It's a great new quilt pattern. I have it for sale in paper and PDF in my Etsy shop now. And the fabrics I used are our Balboa collection, which is shipping in September of 2020. I hope you enjoyed this video about the timeless quilt. I am just in love with this quilt. And as I mentioned in the video earlier, you can make it a lot of different sizes. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. And thanks so much for stopping by.